Welcome back, troops, to Let's Tab 59. What a cracking day. Get out there. Well, this might be the only summer we get here in the UK. We're now towards the end of April and we're in for a bit of a heat wave. What we call a heat wave is probably not what most people think of as a heat wave, especially you guys over in Australia and the United States, etc. But for us, this is hot. I'm in my t-shirt, look, I'm not messing about. Anyway, enough of that. So, I did a video just a few days ago, I think it was, about being banged up in the military prison system, or the military corrective training centre. It's not a prison, is it? Colchester. And I did a bit about that and court-martialling. And I've done one previous, about a year or so ago. I think I called it crime and punishment. Stuff like that. But it got me thinking. I was out this morning, nothing planned. Nothing planned. I just come out for a bimble because it's nice. And I got halfway up the road and I thought, oh, I never really touched on low-level punishment in the British Army. Now, I've been out 10 years. Been out the Army 10 years in May. May the 11th, 2025, I've been out the Army 10 years. So, I am out of touch, obviously. I'm out of touch with the current system of low-level punishments. So, anyone out there that's still serving or recently served, you might be able to tell me exactly how the system works now. So what I want to talk about is the low-level stuff, where you do something wrong and you get a little bit of punishment, but it's not court-martial stuff. You may go in front of the commanding officer and get some punishment, but it's quite low-level punishment, could be a fine. You could also go in front of your OC. OC, for those that know, is officer commanding. So normally that's a major, and that major will be commanding a subunit. So it would be in the infantry, a company, in other corps and regiments. It could be a squadron or a battery. So the OC, the major, he can have you up. You can be up in front of him. So he's down from the CO, obviously, he's one down. So you can go up on OC's orders and be charged formally with something. But it's not a regimental entry. It didn't used to be a regimental entry. In other words, if you went up in front of the CO, the commanding officer, normally a lieutenant colonel, if you went up on his orders, CO's orders, then that would go on your record and it would become a regimental entry. So that would stay on your record. It's like having a criminal record, if you like. And of course, it wouldn't look good on your record. It's not to say that you wouldn't progress your career any further, but it could be, depending on what it was, I suppose, it could be quite detrimental. It could slow your promotion prospects down, hold you up a little bit. And of course, if you get a regimental entry, then that being on your record barred you from receiving your long service and good conduct medal, which was 15 years undetected crime. So once you'd served 15 years man service, so that service had to start from the age of 18. Once you'd completed 15 years, if your record was clean, you would receive your long service good conduct medal. However, if within that 15 years you had been on CO's orders and found guilty, got a regimental entry, then that barred you from getting that medal, because obviously it's 15 years, it's a double medal really, isn't it? It's called the long service and good conduct. So you might have the long service, but if you hadn't a good conduct, you got a military criminal record, if you like, that stopped you from getting that medal. Now, you can try and get that resolved. You can, sort of plea bargain, say, look, it was a long time ago. I think what happens is, from the date of that sentence, if you like, or that date you get nicked by the commanding officer on his orders and the regimentary gets dated, your 15 years has got to start again. So chances are not many people, if they've got one of those, are going to get their medal. Depends on what stage that 15 years in their career get. Anyway, so when you go up on OC's orders, officer commanding orders, that doesn't affect you because it's low level. But there's also punishment you can receive that's even lower than that. And that could be in the form of extra duties. Now, extra duties can be dished out by non-commissioned officers, lance corporals, corporals, sergeants, staff sergeants, colour sergeants, all the way up. So you can get like an on-spot fine. Maybe it could be for slack turnout. It could just be for being an idiot and twatting about a bit. It could be a little bit of lateness on parade, maybe. It really depends on you as an individual and what you're normally like. If you're normally a bit of a nightmare, then you're going to get extra duties coming your way a bit thick and fast. And so the NCOs can dish these out. Now, I don't know, there must be written somewhere the maximum in one go that an NCO can award extra duties to a soldier. But I don't know what that is, to be honest. Whether it's, a maximum of 5 extras, I don't know. Normally what would happen then, you would commit a misdemeanour and the NCO on the spot would go, right son, 5 extras. So it's better than being charged. It's better than going up on orders. 5 extras. So what did that mean? Well, it meant that you would have to do 5 extra duties. Now that could be, normally it would be extra guard duties, but it could be other fatigues. Certainly back in the day, we had cookhouse fatigue. So private soldiers would get a cookhouse fatigue, not for doing something wrong, it's just a normal duty that you would get throughout the month maybe. And you would get put on cookhouse fatigues, which is quite a crappy one really, because you'd go down to cookhouse, have your breakfast, and then you'd be pan bashing, spud barbering, all the usual rubbish. Not very nice. Not too bad in the winter, because when it's freezing cold out in Germany, you'd be in a nice warm cookhouse, at least you were full of hot tea and you got plenty of food. But it was a very nice duty, and it went on all through the day, cleaning up, or prepping everything, cleaning up afterwards, pan bashing. And then, of course, after evening meal, you'd be the last ones away because you'd have to clean the kitchen for the chefs, the old chef sergeant, and square it away. So you might get extra duties, you get 5 extra duties. Doesn't mean to say, it didn't then, which duty you would get. So it could be a range of duties. You might get a couple of extra guards, an extra cookhouse or 2, and it could be another fatigue. So that was extra duties. Now, as I spoke a little minute ago about going up on OC's orders, the ones where it wasn't a regimental entry, when you go in front of the OC, the major, you've obviously done something a little bit more serious, but not serious enough to go in front of the CO. Now, it's hard to give you an example of that, although this call sign has been in front of the OC a few times in the past. Certainly if you come back from downtown, for instance, let's talk about someone comes back down from downtown in Germany, a little bit worse for wear, staggers through the guard room, is clearly drunk, maybe a bit gobby. A young soldier might be a bit gobby and drunk, and he could end up being thrown in the guard room for the night, and then the next day up on OC's orders and in front of the OC for drunkenness, say. So then the OC here's your side of the story, here's the evidence from, in this case it'd be the regimental police down at the guard room or the guard commander or whatever. Here's that evidence. The accused, then you get to do your bit. He'll ask you how you plead guilty. It's the best way to go if you've been caught. There's no good messing about. There's no solicitors involved, nothing like that. Bang, you're guilty, son. And then the OC will ask if you accept his award. You say, yes, I will. And then he'll give you an award. It's not a medal. It's not 25-yard swimming certificate or cycling proficiency. It's not that kind of award. He's going to award you punishment. That's what he's going to award you. So you could get a fine, or you could get, or a combination of both, you could get such a thing. Now civilians and maybe personnel overseas might not have heard of this term, ROPs, ROPs, restrictions of privileges. Now, he could award, I think, up to, I'm not sure, I think the CO, the colonel, can give you 14 days restrictions of privileges, but I think the OC had less power. I might be wrong. The most I ever got was 7. A week's worth, 7 days of restrictions of privileges. What did that involve? Well, it did vary from unit to unit. But in general terms, and from my experience, I'll tell you what that was all about. So if you get awarded restrictions of privileges, say like in my case, on one particular instance, I got 7 days restrictions of privileges. So I used to get up in the morning, normal working day, so it's a Monday morning, get up as normal, get myself squared away, go down, have my breakfast, and then there's always a bit of time between breakfast and going on first parade. And you might have to go down to the guard room and do something, a menial task, a bit of litter picking or something. Then you'd scoot back, go on your normal working day parade and work as normal. Down the garages, track bashing, whatever, cleaning vehicles, whatever it was. So you'd crack on with your normal day's work. You get to lunchtime, get down the cookhouse, get your lunch. As soon as you've had your lunch, let's say you finished at 12:30, grab your lunch, and by 1 o'clock, you'll be back down the guard room and work until lunch break was over. Now, from memory, our lunch was from 12:30, midday, obviously, 12:30 through to 1:45. So you'd have to have your scran within half an hour, get down the guard room for 1 o'clock and work that 3/4 of an hour in the guard room. Again, it could be, I don't know, washing the duty driver's vehicle down, probably litter picking. It could be snow clearing if it was winter, sweeping up leaves if it was autumn, or just sweeping up dusty roads around the camp. I don't know. It depended what the provost sergeant wanted to detail you with. So you'd work your lunch hour basically, apart from your food. Then you'd finish work at 4:30. Now, when you finish work, you'd have a little bit of time before your evening meal. You'd have your evening meal, and I think, again from memory, you had to be down the guard room in working dress. You had to be pretty good, but be pretty smart. Down the guard room to parade for 1800 hours, 6 o'clock in the evening. Again, then the provost staff would detail you work, and you worked from 6 o'clock on whatever that task was they gave you, and it was always going to be somewhat crappy and menial. You'd work, I think it was until 9:30, 21:30 hours, where you were sent back up to your accommodation. You would get cleaned up and you would get dressed in your number 2 dress, service dress. It's the brown uniform the British soldiers wear. Not the best uniform, the number 2 uniform. Peak cap, and you'd be in your uniform, and you had to be immaculate. Best boots, everything. You then go back down the guard room for 2200 hours, stand outside there, and you would get inspected by one of the provost staff, I think, from memory again. So you'd get inspected. Now, if you passed that inspection, if they were happy with your boots and your uniform and everything was squared away, then you'd pass that and you'd be knocked off for the night. Now, if you got 7 days of that, you would do that every day. Of course, when it got to the weekend, when there is no normal working day on, Saturday morning, you'd have your breakfast, you'd be down the guard room, and you would work the full day. You'd have your lunch break, obviously, but you'd work the full day down the guard room doing menial tasks. And then in the evening, you'd be knocked off again to go upstairs to your block, get your number 2 dress on for that nighttime inspection at 2200 hours. If you didn't pass that nighttime inspection in number 2 dress, they picked you up for something. Say they weren't happy with your boots, your best boots weren't quite up to scratch, they would send you back up the block to correct that mistake, that fault in your dress, and come back down half an hour later, where you'd get inspected again. And if they weren't happy, they'd send you back upstairs for another half an hour to correct the problem. And so it would go on until they're happy. So depending on the personality working in the guard room, depending on how hard you work on your kit, it could be a lot of messing about. So as I say, then on the Saturday and the Sunday, that would be your privileges are restricted. So basically what they're doing is they are restricting your time off, your out of work hours, even through the daytime, your lunch breaks, everything, you're getting pasted. 7 days, I remember weeding the running track. We had a big running track out the front of the camp, a sort of red cinder sort of running track. And obviously in the spring, or some of the little weeds were popping up. It's a 400 metre running track. Going around weeding that, absolute nightmare. So restrictions of privileges, not a nice thing. And as I say, sometimes you could get an award of up to 7 days restrictions of privileges maybe, and a fine on top of it, depending what you've done. I knew a lad that had thrown a bit of a wobbly in a naffy bar one night and punched a hole in one of the doors. And obviously he got 7 days restriction of privileges, and he got, I think it was a 30 in those days, a £30 fine, I suppose, to replace the damage to the door or whatever. So depending on what you've done, depending on what your OC was like, depending on your track record, depending on what you're going to get. So that's sort of low level punishments. Obviously there's other things. I mean, right back in the day, you know, if you got things wrong during training, say, you know, or an inspection, the corporal, the sergeant, whatever, might make you get down and do 20 press-ups or 30 press-ups or whatever, or star jumps or burpees or what it was. You might get on the spot punishment like that. And of course, we used to have, at one time, soldiers would be punished, say on drill or something, if they had their weapons with them, doing rifle drill and you got it wrong, you could end up running around the parade square with your rifle above your head, 2 hands on your rifle above your head, doing laps of the parade square. Now that got stopped, and rightly so, and I can't remember what it was. Apparently somebody did fall quite ill after doing it, or maybe even died, I can't remember. And it was due to, when they'd done the inquiry, the strain on the heart from having the rifle, the old SLR above your head. Pokey drill. Now, we called it pokey drill, right? That's not necessarily a punishment, but it could be collective punishment. You get the whole squad to do pokey drill. Again, it'd have to be a lesson, either drill or something to do with weapons where you've got your rifle with you at the time. Contact went out. They're shooting again. Anyway, pokey drill, yeah. The actual proper name for it, because pokey drill become quite a bit of a no-no, was strengthening exercises. And basically what you'd do, you'd hold your rifle out like I'm holding a selfie stick out now, and do various exercises. You might have the rifle in one hand, lifting it up, holding it to the front, lifting it up, all this sort of, holding it by the flash eliminator, you know, trying to pick it up like that. Pokey drill, we called it. That was normally a collective thing. I remember in basic training we were getting stuff wrong, we were getting drill movements wrong or whatever, and so the drill instructor lined us all up, or in the semicircle. He'd got the rifle out and demonstrated each exercise, and then we had to carry them out. Quite painful on the shoulders, etc. So that's just a little bit about other punishments other than going into the glass house and being locked up or discharged. Low level punishment, extra duties and restrictions of privileges. Restriction of privileges was a bit of a nightmare, I've got to tell you. I remember I got 7 days restriction of privileges, and I was right at the end, and I'd had a rough time off the provost sergeant, and I was on my last day, so it must have been a Sunday. It's on a Sunday, and everything was going good. I'd finished work. They sent me back upstairs to get my number 2 dress on. I went up, my kit was immaculate. I'd passed every night, so I didn't touch it. I just made sure it's dusted down. I didn't have to do it, it's immaculate. So I sat on my bed, thought I won't put it on yet, it's too early to sit in my kit, I don't want to spoil it. So my kit was hanging up on the side of the wardrobe, boots all there. I sat on my bed, propped up again, and I fell asleep. Fell asleep. I was supposed to be down the guard room at 2200 hours. I suddenly woke up at the start, 10:30. 22:30. I was half an hour late for that last show parade, or ROP parade in number 2s. So of course I threw my kit on. By the time I got down the guard room, I was uber late. and I got a right rift in, got charged by the Provo staff, back up on orders Monday morning, and the OC gave me another 7 days restrictions and privileges. So I did get 14, but broken into two awards of 7, if you like, for different things. So anyway, let me know in the comments if any of you guys suffered restrictions and privileges and what sort of stupid jobs they got you doing when you got down the guard room. Brassoing stuff, painting curbstones white, or I don't know, all sorts of crazy stuff. Anything to keep you busy. Let me know in the comments what you did. Thank you for your support to the channel so far, and all the best to everybody. If you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed, please consider it. I'm not saying do it, I'm going to say consider it. Till the next time, troops, and it won't be long. Stay safe, and remember, let's tab.